Taoiseach, as you know, from October onwards, Irish Water will be issuing bills to families across the country in respect of water charges. And while I could talk about the average bill that you promised before the local elections, that it would be €240, and despite the fact that a family with 2 adult children now will be paying about €590, far cry from your 240. I could talk about the fact that you said children will be free, but we now know that children will be entitled to about one shower a week and 1 daily toilet flush. But I'm not going to focus on that today. I want to focus specifically today on the fact that bills will be sent out to about 36,000 people across the country that are on boiled water notices. And about 21,000 of those live in County Roscommon. And there's been enormous confusion and anger across the Midlands this morning because of statements emanating from Fine Gael about this specific issue, giving the impression that there will be a 100% now exemption. And I think you understand, Taoiseach, that the people of Roscommon are very wary of any kind of promises that emanate from you or from sources close to you. What I want to put to you, Taoiseach, is that most objective observers would say that there should be a complete exemption from Irish water bills for people who cannot drink contaminated water, because it's contaminated, obviously. Now, Minister Richard Bruton made a great statement when he said that people should pay for water because we have it up to Ballygowan standard. Now, clearly, in these 30-odd thousand houses, it's anything but Ballygowan standard, but that rationale has gone out the window. And what is the spin now being put on it is that certain elements of the bill will be exempt, but other elements will not be exempt. In other words, residents may not be able to drink the water, but they will be asked to pay for getting rid of that very same water. Now, what I want to ask you, Taoiseach, is why didn't the government in its original legislation decide to specifically exempt homes and businesses with a contaminated supply of water from any water charges whatsoever? And would you agree, Taoiseach, that people should not be issued with a bill from Irish Water until Irish Water is in a position to provide a proper service to them? And in that context, Taoiseach, would you accept also that people should be exempt from day one of being issued with a boiled water notice? And would you now be prepared to accept legislation which has been tabled by my colleague Barry Cowan to amend the original water bill with a view to ensuring that people will be so exempt?
Thank you. Taoiseach. Sorry, Deputy. Settle down now.
You're welcome back. I note your comment there about people being concerned about some statements being made from this side of the House. A bit concerned about some of the statements you made yourself in the last few days. I'd say that they'd have consideration about that, given that you're now setting your sights on the Labour Party, it seems. In any event, the government have...
I know it's first day back at school, but would you settle down, please? Thank you. Get back to normal.
Government have given 2 directions. The regulator is to issue... their definitive findings and charges in the next week or so. The government have given 2 directions, as you know, to the regulator. One, that the average metre charge should be €240. It will be approximately €238, and that children should be free. And on that basis, that's at a level of 21,000 litres, based on surveys carried out by Irish Water and validated by the regulator. The question of boiled water is one that is of great concern to so many people. There are currently 18,000 people on boiled water notices. A situation, as you know, where between 40 and 50% of water leaks away into the ground, is a situation that was let continue for so many years, and it'll be of great consolation to the people of Roscommon when the 4 treatment works currently underway are completed and concluded, and they will not have to have boiled water notices in future. The legislation you referred to, prepared by Deputy Cowan, is not acceptable to the government. This existing legislation, in the consideration of the Minister for the Environment, allows for greater flexibility to deal with issues of where water is contaminated or, for whatever reason, water is not drinkable. The regulator, in their indicative document, did indicate that there would be concessions given in respect of where boiled water notices or contaminated water or water unfit for human consumption would be involved. And as I say, the regulator will issue the definitive findings next week.
Thank you.
So we don't accept your legislation.
Deputy Martin.
The question, I mean, I find it incomprehensible that anybody feels that they should charge somebody for a product that's contaminated. It's beyond any logic. I mean, if water going into a household is contaminated, is not fit for human consumption, how then can you charge that family? And you should have, in the original legislation, exempted any family that's in receipt or that's been supplied by contaminated water from any charge. They're paying for bottled water as we speak, and they have other costs associated with the fact that the water is contaminated. I just actually find it incomprehensible, and I asked you, do you accept as a basic principle, that basic principle, that if your water is contaminated, you shouldn't be obliged to have to pay for it? It's monstrous.
Thank you.
I mean, you should listen to people who are in that situation. Now, whatever one's views on water charges are, if the water that you're being asked to pay for is dangerous, causes you to get sick, seriously ill, is contaminated, but yet the authorities say you are going to have to pay for it as well. It's adding insult to injury. It's arrogance of the highest order. It's illogical and incomprehensible, Taoiseach. Do you accept that as a basic principle? You shouldn't have to pay for water that is contaminated. Do you accept that?
Thank you.
As a basic principle?
Yes or no? Taoiseach.
I've never had much time for your hypocrisy. Your own programme, Deputy Martin, was for higher charges introduced sooner and no exemption at all. And all of a sudden, it's incomprehensible, it's monstrous and all these things. Well, where are you living? Now, the government have issued directions to the regulator. They're very clear, they're being implemented. The regulator, in its own indicative document, indicated that where boiled water notices or contaminated water was involved, that their decision will be issued next week on this matter. The answer to your question, I do not accept the legislation that your party have proposed. I'm answering your question. It's not acceptable because the existing legislation allows for greater flexibility to deal with these things.
Please,
and you come in here, you came before the summer break with the same attitude, and you let them languish in Roscommon for 40 years with poor water, leaking pipes, boiled water notices, lead pipes, and you did nothing about it.
Thank you.
And all of a sudden, because you're preparing for the big job or whatever, that you suddenly feel that nothing should be charged for at all. I absolutely understand the frustration of people at having to boil water every day and have these notices because of inaction over the years. And what's happening now is that the plan is being put in place to rectify this problem and all the others associated with neglect, incompetence, mismanagement, and you're back to your old ways of tax and spend, higher charges, introduce them sooner, and leave them wallow with what they had.
Thank you.
The regulator, you can ask this question next week. The regulator will confirm the position and said the next week, Deputy Martin.